Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda actually isn't on the agenda, but we're going to do a very special proclamation. I'll ask Mrs. Bradley to come up with me, please. And I'm not going to lie, when I first heard about this, I put it for the Red Cross. And then I read it.
The Red Cross hasn't been here for 10 years.
Okay. Whereas the town of Shelter Island is fortunate to have many organizations donate and support the activities of the community members. And whereas the Shelter Island Public Library Society is supported by the Friends of the Shelter Island Library. And whereas Marion Brownlee has served on the board of the Friends of the Shelter Island Library for over 14 years. And whereas Marion Brownlee has served as the treasurer of the Friends of the Shelter Island Library for many of those years. And whereas Marion Brownlee has been instrumental helping to orchestrate a variety of fundraising events, including the annual turkey plunge over the years. And whereas those fundraising events resulted in grants to the library to fund special programs, materials, and technology not covered by the library's annual budget. And whereas her fellow board members find her to be dedicated and cheerful, and she keeps everyone on task and follows protocol. And whereas Marion Bradley is as gracious as she is persistent. And whereas Marion Bradley has always supported the library while also volunteering for many other Shelter Island institutions. And whereas Marion Bradley is retiring from the board of the Friends of the Shelter Island Library. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the town board of the town of Shelter Island, on behalf of all of the citizens of the town, does hereby recognize Marion Brownlee as a dedicated volunteer and a citizen of this town. Signed by the town board.
Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Jerry. And thank you to the town board for this proclamation. It's a very big honor for me to be here today. I just wanted to thank everybody on the library board, our chairman, Mary Ellen McGahey, who keeps taking my page. And to Lisa Richmond, who is replacing me as the treasurer. And she's already doing a wonderful job. And to Terry Lucas, our library director, who has been fantastic. And Terry just told me that she's been here 8 years, and it seems like she just got here. She has done so much for the library. And while I have the opportunity, I would like to tell everybody that there's a vote in June on the expansion of the library. And I would like everybody to vote yes. And I would like everybody to get all of their friends and acquaintances to vote yes. This is going to be a very big event for the library. They really, really need the space. So I know I can count on everybody to do what they should do. Thank you again for this wonderful honor. I will cherish it always.
Oh.
Anything for you?
That's more like it. Get the old men in the They look like that's from Sesame Street. In the balcony. Have to get them in this.
Okay, we'll start the regular portion of the meeting. Is there any correspondence?
Yes.
We have two letters regarding the housing moratorium, and those letters can be seen in the town clerk's office if anyone is interested.
Okay, also, the resolution to, adopt or here,
Me?
the secret,
Resolution for
Accepted.
treatment.
right.
To make a
We're
determination.
not gonna do that tonight because, we had some, correspondence that we're waiting for our consultant to reply to. We had a number of correspondences after our last meeting, and we just got some this week, so Monday. Process of responding to that. So that's not on the agenda. We'll start with our resolutions. Before we start with the resolutions, if anybody wants to speak to any of the resolutions that we're going to adopt, or that we're going to hear, that aren't on the, open for a public hearing, now's the time to talk about them. So we have ethics code, we have accepting bids, we have the wetlands. Now's the time to talk if anybody wants to talk. Okay, if not, we'll start our resolutions, Meg.
Okay. Whereas a vacancy exists on the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Board, and whereas the town board has advertised for applicants, now therefore be it resolved that Jean Richardson is hereby appointed to serve as a member of the Emergency Medical Services Advisory Group for a term to expire on December 31st, 2023. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Jeannie, thank you for volunteering.
Sorry.
Be it resolved that Clarissa Fisher is hereby appointed to serve as a nutrition program part-time office assistant to be paid $30.07 per hour, not to exceed 15 hours per week. So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
Aye.
whereas Dorothy Moorhead, 33 St. Mary's Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install mooring in Cockles Harbor at a location designated as latitude 41.0868, 31 degrees north, and longitude 72.311, 946 degrees west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:10 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Richard Hogan, just left the room, 1 Shorewood Court, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.043322 north and longitude 72.325903 west. Now therefore be resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:12 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas George Deman, 4 Summerfield Place, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a safe mooring system at a location designated as latitude 41.087696 north and longitude 72.35676 degrees west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, public hearing will be held at 6:14 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Robert Watt, 56 Ram Island Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.072879 degrees north and longitude 72.282324 degrees west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held at 6:16 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There are 8 mooring applications held for a public hearing. I'm going to combine all 8 of them in one reading. So whereas Cape Pridwen owner LLC, 81 Shore Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.070988 degrees north and longitude minus 72.375806 degrees west, and latitude 41.071054 degrees north and longitude negative 72.375439 degrees west, latitude 41.071149 degrees north, and longitude minus 72.375083 degrees west, latitude 41.071233 degrees north, and longitude minus 72.374743 degrees west, latitude 41.071319 degrees north and longitude minus 72.374388 degrees west, latitude 41.071242 degrees north and longitude minus 72.375699 degrees west, latitude 41.071337 degrees north and longitude minus 72.375352 degrees west. Lastly, latitude 41.071429 degrees north and longitude minus 72.374996 degrees west. Therefore, be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the public hearing will be held at 6:18, 6:20, 6:22, 6:24, 6:26, 6:28, 6:30, and 6:32 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May 2023 in the Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to proposed installations. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Whereas Christian Clark, 56 North Cartwright Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to construct stairs leading to a new 4-foot by 101-foot fixed dock with a 4-foot by 30-foot fixed L, minus, that will be 16 inches lower than the dock. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 6:34 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th of May, 2023, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Whereas David Cohen, 62 Westmoreland Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to construct a 4-foot by 10-foot ramp leading up to a 4-foot by 89-foot catwalk stairs leading down to the bottom. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 6:36 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas Corinne Mora, 7 Dickerson Drive, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to construct a 4-foot by 60-foot ramp down to a 4-foot by 70-foot catwalk, install 3 ladders at seaward end. Be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, the town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 6:38 p.m. prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or opposition to the construction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
For Scudder Cottages, care of Rodney Scudder, 34 Prospect Avenue, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to remove 43 feet of existing bulkhead and 12 feet existing return, construct 43 feet of new bulkhead and 12-foot return in kind in place, remove 36 feet of existing jetty and construct 42 feet of jetty in place, remove 46 feet of existing jetty and construct 52 feet of jetty in place, dredge 42 feet by 140 feet area from inlet to basin to a -4 below mean low water, remove approximately 1,000 cubic yards of soil, dredge soil to be used as backfill landward of bulkhead, remainder of soil to be used as fill in eroded areas as noted on site plan, install 3 feet by 12 feet seasonal aluminum ramp on a 6-foot by 20-foot seasonal floating dock secured by 4 10-inch diameter anchor pilings, remove existing 4-foot by 80-foot fixed dock, construct a 5-foot by 100-foot from mean high water fixed dock with 4-foot wide crossover stairway to beach at inshore end, install 4 2-panel mooring dolphins at offshore end, install 2 ladders, provide for water and electric service to offshore end. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53-9 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, The town board hereby calls for a public hearing to be held at 6:40 PM prevailing time on the 16th day of May, 2023, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed construction. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Tuesday, May 16, 2023, at 6:42 PM to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, a local law to repeal Town Code Chapter 8 entitled Ethics Code of, in its entirety, and replace same with the new Town Code Chapter 8 to be entitled Ethics Code, of which provides as follows: a local law to repeal Town Code Chapter 8 entitled Ethics Code of, in its entirety, and replace them with a new Town Code to be entitled Ethics Code. Be it enacted as follows. Now, the law is on file
Yes.
with the town clerk. And so I will just sum it up by this, saying, the purpose of the local law is to replace the current ethics chapter within the town code with one that is more comprehensive and fully compliant with Article 18 of the New York State General Municipal Law, which governs municipal ethics. This law will serve to protect against potential town employee and officer misconduct, provide guidance to same, and protect the innocent employee and officer from aspersions. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. The next one is a renoticing of the local law. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 at 6:45 PM prevailing time to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, a local law amending Chapter 105 entitled Rental of Real Property to eliminate owner-occupied premises from being permitted as vacation rentals, of which provides as follows. And then it's the local laws amending Chapter 105, Rental of Real Property to require safety inspections for all rental properties and eliminate owner-occupied premises from being permitted as vacation rentals. Law is available at the clerk's office. Any tweet anything additional?
Just the summary, page 24.
The summary of the proposed law, one purpose of this amendment is to try to ensure that every rental dwelling unit within the town provides a safe environment for the residents thereof. Additionally, it seeks to compel revision back to the current requirement in the zoning code that accessory apartments or accessory dwelling units be solely used for year-round occupancy, and remove this administrative exception in order to put such dwelling units back into the residential year-round occupancy rental pool in order to provide more community housing opportunities. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas bids were received by the town clerk's office for disposal of construction and debris, construction and demolition waste, which was opened publicly and read as follows. Crown Recycling, $89.50 per ton. Peconic Transfer and Recycling, $90 per ton. Winter Brothers Recycling, $89.50 per ton. Whereas the Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed said bid, now therefore be it resolved that said bid is hereby awarded to Crown Recycling. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas bids were received by the town clerk's office for asphalt delivered and applied, as well as asphalt picked up, which were opened publicly and read as follows. Corazini Asphalt, asphalt delivered and applied, $124.50. Asphalt picked up, $92. Whereas the Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed said bid, now therefore be it resolved that said bid is hereby awarded to Corazini Asphalt. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas bids were received by town clerk's office for hauling hazardous waste, which were opened publicly and read as follows. MXI Incorporated, $200 to $350 per 55-gallon drum, $3,500 with on-site technician per event. Now, Island Pump and Tank, $332 to $787 per 55-gallon drum, $5,975 with on-site technician and pickup. And whereas Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed said bids, now therefore be it resolved that said bid is hereby awarded to MXI Incorporated. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas requests for proposals were received by the Commissioner of Public Works until 3 PM on the 22nd day of February 2023 for electrical services, at which time they were open and read as following. Dickerson Electric Co., Inc., service call rate, $140, emergency call rate, $250, labor rate, $140 an hour. And whereas the Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed said proposal, now therefore be it resolved that said proposal is hereby awarded to Dickerson Electric Co., Inc. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas requests for proposals were received by the Commissioner of Public Works until 3 PM on the 22nd day of February for heating and cooling system services, which are opened and read as follows. Zerob's HVAC Inc., service call $140, emergency rate $180, labor rate $140. And whereas the Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed said proposal, now therefore be it resolved that said proposal is hereby awarded to Zerob's HVAC. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas requests for proposals were received by the Commissioner of Public Works until 3 PM on the 22nd of February for tree services, which were opened and read as follows. DC Tree Services Corp. Aerial truck with operator, $2,500 per day, $250 per hour. Aerial truck used for street light service, $2,500 per day, $250 per hour. Whereas Commissioner of Public Works has reviewed said proposal, now therefore be it resolved that said proposal is hereby awarded to DC Tree Services Corp. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Be resolved that supervisor is hereby authorized to execute the contract between the Town of Shelter Island and Solitude for harvesting of undesirable harmful aquatic vegetation in Fresh Pond. Project is not to exceed $17,496, and funds are to be reimbursed to the Town of Shelter Island up to $10,000 from the Fresh Pond Neighborhood Association. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to credit the following: $69.42 from Mullen Motors to the A4540485 ambulance vehicle maintenance account for an invoice overpayment, and $3,760.50 from Creative Information Systems to the A8160.484 landfill office and miscellaneous account for an invoice overpayment, and $266.66 from Suffolk County to the A3120.200 Police Department Equipment account for scrapped vehicle, and $2,716.84 from Suffolk County to the DA2302B account for snow removal reimbursement. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to expend the sum of $200 from the A3120.484 account to iConnective LLC for ELP transactions. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas a public hearing was held on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023, and April 4th, 2023, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled A Local Law Amending Chapter 129 entitled Wetlands to transfer approval authority from the town board to the planning board, enhance the application process, and remedy a code inconsistency regarding clearing, which provides as follows: local law number to be filled in later by the town clerk, 2022. A local law amending Chapter 129 entitled Wetlands to transfer approval authority from the town board to the planning board, enhance the application process, and remedy the clearing inconsistency. Being enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. I'm not going to read all of this. I'll give you the highlights because there's a lot here, and I'm just going to highlight what's changed and what ended up staying after discussion. Section 1, legislative intent. The town board finds that the planning board, due to its collective knowledge of the environment, construction practices, and property design, is the proper board to review and decide upon wetlands permit applications. The planning board has heretofore reviewed every wetlands application and provided well-reasoned recommendations to the town board to act. Thus, they are well equipped to accept this delegation, which will ultimately streamline the process to save both town administrative resources and the applicant's time. Further, the town board has determined that the application process could be enhanced. The clearing inconsistency between the clearing code provision and the wetlands table can be cured. Section 2, amendment. Section 1082 of the Shelter Island Code, Chapter 129 Wetlands, is hereby amended by deleting the stricken words and adding the following underlined words. So this is where I'm just going to skip to highlights. Under the table for clearing, we've changed it from no permit required to not allowed, except for clearing authorized under Section 129-3B. There was discussion about changing demolition, but that has remained the same so that permits are required. Let's get that.
Wetlands permit.
Wetlands permit is required in the vegetative buffer and the adjacent vegetative buffer, and that the causeway wetlands permit is required in the causeway zone. So that has not changed. Anywhere that it says town board has been changed to planning board. There was discussion about changing, and this is not changing, so this remains the same. The wetlands permit exemption for new construction less than or equal to 100 square feet is an exemption of all new accumulated construction totaling 100 square feet or less. The next section to highlight is clarification where a current certified survey prepared by a licensed surveyor has been expanded to include other design professionals such as licensed architects, landscape architects, engineer-based surveys, et cetera, and including more delineated wetlands boundary flagged by a credentialed environmentalist within 5 years of submission of the application. The short form environmental assessment form, the EAF, that's mandated by SECRA, that is remaining unchanged, so that will be required. Clarified the wording that the notice of disapproval is issued by the building department, so that's clear. It said disapproval letter before, but it's definitely coming from the building department. There's an expansion when we discuss vegetation plans. We have to include existing and proposed vegetation, density of buffers, screening, landscaping to be utilized, any other information required by the planning board or CAC. Proof of insurance is going to still be required for at least $500,000 liability. There was also no change made, just a little bit of cleanup in the way it was worded, that the application will only be accepted and processed after DEC and Suffolk County Department of Health permits have gone through. It's just cleaning up the application of insurance, requiring the $500,000. And then the last section that was added was 129-5. C, upon completion of the permitted project, the applicant shall contact the town's environmental consultant, fees to be incurred by the applicant to confirm that the subject buffer, if any, meets the requirements of this chapter and the conditions of the permit. And if confirmed and all of the other terms are met, the building inspector shall issue a certificate of wetlands compliance. And then in summary, the purpose of this local law is to address administrative inefficiencies in the processing of wetlands permit applications by delegating approval authority from the town board to the planning board, upgrade the application process, and cure an internal code inconsistency concerning. So moved.
Second.
Okay, we're not gonna vote. Let's open this for discussion.
Yes.
Amber, you want to start?
Yes. Yeah, I wish I could have been here last week, so I apologize. I try and prioritize some of my town work, but sometimes it's unavoidable, and so I couldn't be here. I did, however, go back and watch the discussion on it, and so I would like to ask that we not pass this legislation this evening. There's two reasons for my request. Publicly, I think we have a lot of opposition to this where the public does not want us to turn the authority over to the planning board. So I am listening to that public input on that. Also, from listening to the tape, there were a lot of instances when you were going through different parts where you talked about numerous instances where we're going to table that and in the next round update this, and in the next round we'll update this. And so I do not like piecemealing legislation. So I feel like we should get it all fixed in one fell swoop, and then if we still want to turn it over to planning board, do it with our known the direction that we want things to be done. So that's my request.
BJ?
I think there's going to be public opposition to this that's very vocal, and public support or public indifference that we haven't really heard. So I don't necessarily agree with you on that point. I also see this as an administrative move by and large. The few changes we've actually made in this round to the code have strengthened the wetlands protection. We have not said don't do an EAF. We have reinstated the wetlands demolition permit. The things that people objected to, we listened to and altered based on that. The piecemealing of it, understood. I think that's a really valid objection. However, I think that administratively, we should march on. I think that we're holding people up, that if we have to come back to this in 2 months or whatever the time frame is to do the cleanup of the code that we talked about, and actually impose a few more restrictive measures, I think that's better. That's a different discussion to me than this administrative thing that we're doing to make the process not involve 4 or 5 clerks, not involve 82 copies, all of that we're trying to do. So that would be my answer to your objections.
Meg?
Yeah, I do think that we addressed a lot of the concerns of the public regarding, some of the proposed changes that they didn't agree with. I think we've taken those into account. Administratively, I do think that this is a very burdensome process, and I do think that we need to clean it up. And I don't see this as a weakening of the code or a weakening of the review process at all. I think it's actually going to strengthen it in many ways because there'll be more consistent oversight when you have one clerk handling the whole process from beginning to end. You won't lose pieces just through the constant transfer of documents. So, in some ways, I think it strengthens the process because it kind of keeps it,
Nationalizes it.
keeps it contained. So for those reasons, I'm still in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Jim Colligan's away. He can't vote tonight, but he asked me to read this. After very careful review, the town board seeks to strengthen the wetlands application process by utilizing the expertise of the planning board as well as the Conservation Advisory Council to its fullest. In addition, the town board will continue to review and amend the current town code as it pertains to the wetland, strengthening the code to better protect all wetlands properties beyond even wetlands applications. That was from Jim. My thoughts on this, I mentioned it at one of the work sessions. I've had a lot of discussions with Stephen, with Christina, with board members. You learn to pick your battles. And I said right from the start, this wasn't one of my battles. I don't see it's that important. I said to Christina, prove to me that it makes sense to do it, and I'll support it. And I think she did very much, as Amber went through hers, as Meg last week went through all the changes we made, how we addressed all the concerns other than the town board's actual vote. I think you can do the politically correct thing, or you can do the right thing for the reason you're doing it, for the public. But with that said, I think this is the right thing to do. I think we should move forward with this as is. Okay, so I'll call for a roll call vote. Meg?
Aye.
Amber?
No.
BJ?
Aye.
Supervisor, yes. 3-1, so moved. Okay.
And then there's one more. That was the last one in the regular packet, right?
Yes.
So there's one more resolution. Be resolved that the 2023 general claims numbered 535 through 670 in the amount of $144,561.89. 2023 highway claims numbered 61 through 72 in the amount of $19,668.47. 2023 community preservation fund claims numbered 5 through 6 in the amount of $94.25 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of the same. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we're going to recess the public meeting for a public hearing on the Serena Dugan 37 Tut Hill Drive mooring application. Linda? You have it?
It just says what he just said.
Oh, let me see if we have it. I got
It's the
it.
first one highlighted.
Okay, you got it?
He's got it.
At 6:10 PM prevailing time on the application of Serena Dugan, 37 Tut Hill Drive, for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.073617 degrees north and longitude minus 72.285644 degrees west.
This is Dugan? Right, sorry. So the WMAC actually adjusted that location. I'll give it to you. You don't have to copy it down. I hate that. You could always, you know, I could always read it wrong or whatever, but on April 10th, and they approved it with this minor adjustment. So I'll give that to you, Linda, for the record.
Okay, any comments on this application? Okay, we'll close that hearing and open the hearing on the proposed local law entitled the local law, getting a new chapter 106 entitled right of way. Read the summary.
Do you have it, Linda, or should I?
I don't have the summary.
I have it.
You have the notice, though, you have to read the notice.
Yes.
Hold on there.
Yes.
This?
Yes.
That's pretty. At 6:12 p.m. prevailing time on a proposed local law entitled, a local law adding a new chapter 106 entitled Rights of Ways to prohibit certain obstructions to the public right of way. And this can be seen in the town clerk's office.
Right, and the summary is, the purpose of this local law is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of those who traverse Shelter Island roads by prohibiting obstructions in the shoulders thereof. It also allows the town to remove such obstructions if the property owners adjoining same fail to do so. We'll open it up to the public. Any comments on the shoulders of the road? Anybody in the Zoom audience? Okay, I'm going to close that hearing. And open the hearing on the local proposed 12-month moratorium.
At 6:14 p.m. prevailing time on a proposed local law entitled, a local law to impose a 12-month moratorium on the process of including special permits by the town board in connection with applications for one-family dwellings and accessory structures with a square foot living area of greater than 5,999 square feet.
Okay, we'll open this up. John?
Oh, okay.
John had original and several copies of a letter and kind enough to distribute them to the board members. We represent Crescent Beach LLC, the owner of a property. Bennett means the name of my firm. The owner of a property located at 11 Serpentine Drive, Shelter Island Heights, which is the subject of a pending application, a special permit and wetlands permit for the construction of a new single-family residence and associated improvements. First thing I'd have to caution you is that I have contacted the Suffolk County Planning Commission and it's been confirmed that the Planning Commission has not yet discussed this proposed legislation and will not be doing so until a meeting scheduled for May 3rd, and as such, can't enact this legislation this evening. You can't enact it, close the hearing. You can't close discussion on it until the Planning Commission has acted and given you their comments. I did see looking through some of the Planning Commission comments, for example, on a green report. They question the need for it, and they also question the length of it, which is as years. They often wanted information from the town, the village, I should say, of Greenport, and what the volume of applications were. So the Planning Commission, you're under the general municipal law, but you know that you litigated a very prominent
Municipal
case.
law and Suffolk County Charter.
Thank you. Sorry, my colleague. You simply can't act. Well, this moratorium would affect our client's application. We submitted a correspondence in opposition both today and on April 3rd. First, the duration of the moratorium. I'm going to tell you why the moratorium is not appropriate, but it's far too long. A year is a significant delay in development. Second, as I pointed out in my correspondence dated April 3rd, 2023, this board reviews any application seeking construction of a home of 6,000 square feet or larger and determines whether or not to grant a permit. We don't understand why you need a moratorium. That procedure requires that an applicant seeking a special permit obtain any other required approvals before an application is even accepted. That's a long process. So, for example, Crescent Beach LLC, after spending substantial time and expense, developed plans that have been approved by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, and the zoning board of appeals. We've been asking since February for the meeting to be continued, and now what it may not be bad faith, but it sort of looks like it. We've been asking for February for a hearing to be continued, and now we're told you're going to have a hearing in May. Oh, but by the way, there's a moratorium hearing in April. So we've been asking since February to have the hearing continued. This is an application that's been pending for quite some time. Crescent Beach, after spending, our client filed these applications and is still paying. The moratorium affects only a handful of applications. I want to tell you just a little bit, if you can please suffer my comments, but I think that they'll help you. A moratorium can only be active, and this is case law, but there's a dire necessity, reasonably calculated or to alleviate a crisis condition. When the general police power is invoked under circumstances, it must be considered an emergency measure and is circumscribed by the exigencies of that emergency. A moratorium put in place merely, quote, to assuage a small group of people who want no further waterfront development, for example, and care not what the public cost or damage caused to waterfront property owners. The Suffolk County Supreme Court, in that case, Duke versus Town of Huntington, overturned the moratorium, finding no dire necessity, no crisis condition, not an emergency. I don't understand how these applications that come before you and are subject to your discretion are an emergency. It's not like you have 100 people sitting in the building department waiting for building permits. They have to be reasonable, necessary, and a limited response directed at redressing a genuine crisis or emergency. That's Cellular Telephone versus Village of Tarrytown. Where's the dire necessity here? Limited number of applications. Local law states the town board wants to evaluate impacts on community character, the environment, and the aquifer. That's what you guys look at when we put these applications in. These are all part of the criteria that this board is required to engage in when reviewing or considering an application. Having presented a few of these cases, I cannot attest to any of the applications that I've submitted that has demonstrated anything other than no impact to the aquifer. For example, a recent Hunter curve analysis submitted with the town demonstrates that a home of 5,999 square feet, which would be as of right, will still remain, may have a water demand in excess of an 8,000, 10,000, or 12,000 square foot house. It's about bedrooms, it's about seasonality of use, it's about a lot of things. So this evidence is contrary, I just talked to you about, and is in the file on one of your applications, is contrary to any dire necessity, crisis, or emergency that can be claimed. My people have been in this for 2.5 years. At an absolute minimum, you should automatically exempt anyone who's filed an application. Instead, you've relegated them to a variance standard, which is absurd. You've taken an unnecessary hardship standard, which is an ancient standard for variance. It's close to a use variance standard. It's almost impossible to meet. It's vague, and critically, it bears absolutely no relationship to the alleged harms that the moratorium seeks to assuage, to the extent that they're even there. It has no, you have to put standards, much more specific standards for the grant for relief. So again, I would ask you to go back to the drawing board. I would ask you, I think this is a crisis of your own legislative making, if I may. There's no dire emergency or necessity for this moratorium as the case law and the town law require. And at a minimum, you can't act until you hear what the Planning Commission says. And I think you're going to find the Planning Commission, if they're going to do the same thing that they've done on these other moratoria responses that I've looked at, they're going to ask you to prove, not just in conclusory form, but prove with science and evidence why you need this. Finally, again, I'm being repetitious, but at a minimum, somebody who's been in the process for this long, has a health department permit, a DEC permit, a variance from the town board, you should automatically, town zoning board, you should automatically exempt them, and I would pray that you do. Thank you, and thank you for listening to me.
I'm going to remind the board, as far as the Suffolk County planning recommendation, this board can overrule it, the majority plus one. So we're not bound by their recommendation.
Yes, sir. Christopher Kelly, Toomey Latham Shea, Kelly Dubin, and Corderaro.
Supervisor Siller, members of the board, I'm here on behalf of our clients, David and Allison Ullendorf. Mrs. Ullendorf is here behind me, who own property at 149 North Ram Island Road. The board currently has before it our application, my client's application, for a special permit for the property at 149 North Ram Island Road. And it has gone through a hearing, it has gone through review by all the referral agencies. When the Ullendorfs purchased the property, they were aware of the situation that was brought on by the prior owner, the Siegelbaums. Siegelbaums finished a basement in their structure that had had the prior building permits, but they finished a basement without the required special permit. They went to the building department and asked about getting an updated CO last February, and they were denied and told they would need to get approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services for a bedroom in that finished basement. And in order to get that permit, they would likely have to install an IA system, a denitrifying system. So in anticipation of submission of their application to legalize the improved basement, they went ahead and got that approval and installed that very expensive system. They have taken, the predecessor entitled took action in reliance on the representation of the understanding that this board would be likely to grant such a permit because they have never denied this type of permit. We submit, because of the posture of this application and the particular facts that I'll go over in a second, that you act on the pending application of the Ullendorfs before you act on the moratorium, if you choose to go and enact the moratorium, or alternatively rewrite the language of the moratorium to allow for exemptions for applications such as this. We not only have a pending application, we essentially have an application that has completed the hearing process. We believe that in the interest of justice, this application should be granted or exempted from the moratorium. Now, there are many reasons why, in the interest of justice, this application should be granted. First, as mentioned, the IA system has been installed at great expense in the anticipation of this very application. Very importantly, there's no proposal to increase the size of the footprint of the building. This building, notably, and we did a little bit more research on this, this building was under construction 2 years before the town had any limitation on square footage maximums. They had no limitation on the size of a single family residence. This house was started construction in 2004, and your first local law that addressed square footage, at that point it was in the 8,000 square foot range, was in 2006. So what we have here is a pre-existing dwelling.
But when was the basement added? After the law?
Yes, but it was already within the footprint. The footprint, or the building, the structure already existed.
6,000 square feet living space, that the basement was added, made living space after the 6,000 foot limitation?
Yes.
Okay,
No question. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here asking for a special permit.
that's what I thought.
Right. But the house was, it wasn't like there was an addition put onto the house. The structure existed. Third, the planning board has recommended that the application be approved. The Conservation Advisory Council has reviewed the application with no objections. There has been no identification of any adverse environmental impacts from the project. We're just legalizing the finishing of the basement. Significantly, at the hearing that was before this board on the application, there was no opposition submitted from the public. And the only reason we haven't got to the point of approval is because it was a delay caused by the administrative process in the town. We were scheduled to be on the agenda several times before the Conservation Advisory Council, which couldn't muster a quorum, and after several dates on which we were supposed to be on the agenda. So we believe that these factors here, and there's 7 of them, require that in the interest of justice, this application either be exempted from the moratorium or simply approved because it's teed up for your approval at this point, be approved before action is taken on on the moratorium. The Ullendorfs are looking to make this their full-time home. They've done everything possible to legalize what was there. They worked diligently with the building department. I think the building department will attest to that. And we ask that, again, in the interest of justice, their application be approved. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Stella Lagutis, and I am representing the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation. I'm speaking here tonight on behalf of the board. And that board totally supports the proposed 12-month moratorium. If you look at the draft of the comprehensive plan that's online, it says data according to the assessor's office basically says that the median size of a home on Shelter Island today is about 2,000 square feet. If you're a full-time taxpayer, you might have 1,900 square feet as a median. If you're off island, I think it's 2,100. But basically, it's pretty small. The assessor provided me with a listing of house sizes in October of 2022. At the time, there were 37 homes that were or compounds that were over 6,000 square feet.
How many?
There were 37. I pulled out Sylvester Manor from that number. And since that time, there are another 8 homes, and we've just heard about 2 of them, that have either been, they're in some state of application, or they've been approved already and they're just in construction phase. So those 8 are not necessarily looking for 6,050 square feet. They're looking for a total of between 8,000 and 12,000 square feet. So they're big asks. Some are new homes, some are renovations, some are tear downs and rebuilds, some are in the wetlands, some are adding accessory structures, which, by the way, the town code doesn't have any maximum size for at the moment. Many have pools and pool houses, so they're getting to be compounds. The frequency of these applications, in our board's opinion, are really coming fast and furious. And obviously, we have to consider the aquifer. We have to consider the wetlands. We have to consider community character. We have to consider, do we want to be this charming island? Do we want to turn into the Hamptons? There are pros and cons for development. The board's not saying that they're not looking to have any development done, but we probably should rely on what's in the comprehensive plan that we're using today until the revision comes before us. In the 1994 comprehensive plan, it talked about making recommendations to reduce residential density, upzoning, limiting accessory structures in water-sensitive areas, and the exploration of limitations on allowable building floor area in relation to the lot size. In the new comprehensive plan, which is underway, it talks about us needing a roadmap. We need to decide what we want to be when we grow up, and we need to understand what any future changes to the zoning code is going to be. So recognizing that business needs to go on, it's not that you're asking for a moratorium to go on forever. It's 12 months, and our board believes that this is a reasonable amount. It's helpful to stop and take a breath, to really make some assessments without establishing potentially bad precedent. And the Heights Board applauds your courage in taking this action and hopes that you'll vote yes. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Sure.
Please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Rich Hogan. I've been coming to the East End since I was in my teens in the 1970s. Beginning in the early 90s and for over 20 years, I moored my boat in Sterling Harbor, Greenport, frequently anchoring in the waters off of Shelter Island. In 2008, I realized my aspiration becoming a Shelter Island resident. The purchasing the former Artemis Ward Estate in the Shorewood neighborhood. I have a deep appreciation for the nature and the character of this community. I've fully restored this property to its former glory. And I should note that while the primary structure is less than 6,000 square feet, finished garage loft pushed us over the limit and I had to get a special permit. For over 25 years, I've been a benefactor of the Agricultural Stewardship Association in Washington County, New York, where individually I preserved some 300 acres of land. As an organization, we've preserved over 30,000 acres. More locally, I served for 6 years on the Peconic Land Trust Board. I placed a conservation easement on 2.75 acres of waterfront land in Shorewood to preserve the historic gardens associated with the Artemis Ward Estate, where I've hosted numerous fundraising events. I'm also the developer of Pandion, the 5-home subdivision and homeowners association facility located on the former St. Gabriel's Retreat. I've developed a property with a sense of appreciation for its prominent position in Cockles Harbor, the open bucolic setting, and the startling view corridors. Minimizing the number of structures there was my primary goal. I developed a 25-acre parcel such that there would be no more than 5 primary dwellings with a minimum lot size of 3¼ acres in Shelter Island Zone C, where, as you know, the minimum lot size is 1 acre. A fully optimized development plan would have yielded 21 homes, each with a potential 6,000 square foot home. This development plan earned accommodations from the then chairmen of the Planning Board and the Zoning Board for its minimum intensity. I have approached all of my projects from the lens of land conservation wherever possible, and always with the goal of preserving the character of the community. As the community contemplates the large home moratorium, I would strongly advocate instead for legislation requiring proportionality in home sizes relative to the lot size. Not all 6,000 square foot homes are the same. In my opinion, 6,000 square foot home on a 1 acre parcel is out of proportion and overly demanding on our precious natural resources. That same house on a 3 or 6 or 10 acre parcel carries none of those burdens. Think about it. If someone aggregated 10 or more acres in a mid-island wooded area, what harm is there in their building a larger home? I believe a more thoughtful and nuanced approach would scale home size to property size. Now, the existing special permit framework is not working. These permits are rarely denied as the town board has little to rely on in the code limiting the larger size homes. But a moratorium on a special permit, even for 12 months, would be lazy legislation, numerous unintended side effects. Uncertainty around future regulation would immediately freeze the high-end property market. Property owners and the real estate service community would suffer an immediate impact. Downstream, business owners, restaurateurs, and the local economy more broadly would suffer as visitors see the metaphorical closed for business sign as they offload the ferry. The diminution of value underdeveloped properties will have ripples affecting their assessed value and more broadly the aggregate tax base. Tax burden disproportionately absorbed by these higher end properties would be pushed down to the average homeowner. The Community Preservation Fund revenues will likely decline, stalling the virtuous preservation cycle. A dichotomy would arise between the haves and have-nots of grandfathered large homes. Existing large homes would be in high demand, while underdeveloped properties or homes ripe for an energy efficiency upgrade would see their value reduced by the uncertainty or the reality around newer potential regulation. Individuals who recently acquired a property and perhaps are in the planning stages would be unfairly bludgeoned by this moratorium. I fear the community is perilously close to unnecessarily and permanently impairing Shelter Island property market when a thoughtful, more nuanced legislative approach is available to you. My experiences at Pandion may inform your decision. When I initially developed the property, I implemented homeowners association design guidelines which included some limitations, home size limitations, under a formula where 3,000 square feet of buildable living space could be built per acre of land. So, for example, a 3¼ acre property or minimum size would accommodate a home no larger than 10,000 square feet. Now, while this may sound overly generous, the very existence of these guidelines turned away prospective buyers. I had no offers on any of these properties until I removed the guidelines. 3 of the parcels have since sold. In fact, one prospective purchaser conditioned the purchase on successfully obtaining their special permit. Such is the confidence that prospective buyers have in our community. You may take further guidance from the Shelter Island Planning Board, which in their May 16th, 2022 letter in support of the Pandion special permit application wrote, and I quote selectively from their letter, and I have a copy of it, which I'll share with you. This is them. We know Shelter Island has a long history of frowning on very large houses and favoring smaller cottages. But we also realize that we have a recent history with several precedents of allowing a large house when a lot is large. This 9,800 square foot house will have an 8,400 square foot footprint with site coverage, building components totaling 10,000 square feet. Excluding driveways, patios, and walkways, development proposed on this lot will be 7.4%, where 25% is permitted. Lot coverage is listed at 26,000 square feet, and it occupy 18% where 40% is permitted. They go on and they say, we recognize that this development was designed for fewer but bigger houses. Being in C-zone, where lot size is 1 acre, we would have possibly seen 3 houses, 6,000 square foot each, on this lot with no special permit required. With these considerations, the planning board recommends approval of the application. That's a close quote. To be clear, I advocate clear and understandable code limiting house sizes based on a ratio of lot size, where smaller lot sizes would not be disadvantaged and larger home sizes would require a more generous sized piece of land. Implementing even a temporary moratorium would imperil confidence in our regulatory landscape and could permanently damage our real estate market. I have every confidence that you, our legislators, are capable of smart, thoughtful legislation, not lazy legislation. I'm happy to field any questions you might have.
Normally we don't comment, but I'm going to comment. I think you made the case for the moratorium. We've talked about proportionality. We've talked about having set guidelines for everyone, not each one individually, and how we're going to handle this or that or the other thing. I think that was the intent of the moratorium, to make this more structured for each applicant as opposed to, each one you look at individually.
I don't think you're taking into account the harm that you're going to do to our real property market while the moratorium is in effect, and for people who are wondering what follows the moratorium.
I think in the long run, we have to look at the benefit for the island in the long haul.
Can I ask you how many I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
Sorry.
you.
Go ahead.
Can I ask you how many applications are before you now?
I believe 8.
So,
And before that, up until this year, there was 37 total.
you may think about weighing the harm that's done by the continuation of these permits going through versus the harm that is going to affect the community by having the moratorium in place.
I think the one thing we're going to discuss when we discuss it, we're not going to act on this tonight, is the length of the moratorium. I think 6 months is more realistic than a year, quite honestly. But I think there's a need for the moratorium, personally.
And also, he referenced a thoughtful and nuanced approach, and that's exactly what the town
Right.
wants to do. And you referenced that. The approval mechanism has to be evaluated. The gentleman over there said, the town never denied such a permit. That's a problem. So right now, the comprehensive plan is being updated. And as you're aware, all land use legislation, zoning, has to be in conformity with the comprehensive plan. So it'd be municipal malfeasance at this point to draft new legislation when the comprehensive plan right now, as we speak, is being updated. So this would just give the town board an opportunity to take a step back, let that process unfold, and then be educated and guided by the updated comprehensive plan. Megan, BJ, where are we on the process on updating the comprehensive
Oh, it
plan?
could be years. No, I'm just,
So it won't be.
it has been years.
It has been years. That is appropriate. Well, we have a discussion, hopefully we'll be done next month discussing the chapters, that a draft should be complete. We should have all the big public hearings, public work sessions this summer. And hopefully by September, October, we'll be finished
It's our
with the
final draft.
I believe, yeah, May 22nd scheduled for the land use
We have
zoning.
housing and land use coming up, and we just finished natural resources, in which this topic came up again.
So I'm
Thickness of the aquifer and where, maybe that's, just as, for instance, it just was tossed around last night. Maybe it's not lot size. Maybe that's the wrong route. Maybe it is water. What's underneath the property? Can that property, no matter how big it is, support the draw that an extra large house would mean? It's just a thought right now. It's just an idea that the comp plan wants to explore. Like, is that something worth recommending to the town board?
A thought is to perhaps deny an application because of the grounds that you suggest, as opposed to using a moratorium, which is a blunt instrument, and it doesn't recognize the difference between a 6,001 square foot house and a 12,000 square foot house. That's lazy legislation. You folks can do better than that.
I think,
No, lazy. It's knee-jerk legislation. That's lazy. Been waiting for the comprehensive plan to be developed and do it in a deliberate manner. That's not lazy.
So you want a clarification on the timeline for the comp plan?
Correct.
So May, we have 2 meetings to discuss the last 2 chapters. I'm assuming this may take 1 additional meeting. So sometime in the first 2 weeks of June would be hopefully the last meeting to discuss chapters, with the final draft done by the end of June for public meetings in July and August. Hopefully with a final draft in September, hopefully adoption sometime in October or November. So that's kind of the timeline.
And then from there, you have the comprehensive plan, and then you have to translate that into zoning code. And the town board has to explore whether a special permit mechanism is the appropriate one. Right now, there's no specific large home standards. It's just the generic standards. That's not good. You would admit that. So whether they want to upgrade the standards to more specific to SFLA, that's one option. Another option in other municipalities is area variance, make it an area variance. So these are things that are going to be discussed by the board, and do it in a way that, best address the competing interests that you mentioned.
thank you.
Thank you very much. This is,
Anybody else in the audience? Bert?
Yeah, Bert Wave. So my family's home was purchased pre-zoning. So when zoning came out, business property, there was height limitation of 50 feet. You build something 50 feet. We always dreamed that we were going to build a hotel there. 50 foot, 5-story.
Yeah.
That was the joke. But, we all, but that changed later on in the coding and in the code, and it, became 35 feet. So we've, all throughout the island, everybody's given up something with the zoning code. And I think that, I think the moratorium makes sense to look at, the large houses. And I want to speak to the character of the island that is a part of it. And I think that it changes the character of the island when you have massive homes. And regardless if it's on 3 or 6 acres, the scale of the building, the mass of it changes the character. Looking at it from either the water or, driving by it, or also the needs, the resources that this property has. my house was built without electricity. It was wired, and I think the first time they gave you was like, 20 amps, and it went to 50, and we upgraded, we got 200. These houses that are being built have, 600 amp services. That leads downstream to, the wind farms having to be larger, more fishermen being put out in the ocean by them. So I think that the town has a responsibility to look at the total environment of what the cost is of a large home. And
Thanks.
Anybody else in the audience? Anybody else in the Zoom audience? Okay, we're going to recess this hearing. We're not going to close it. We will discuss it Tuesday. And that said, we will, listen, we're supposed to have a public hearing, or we thought we had a public hearing on the local law amending Chapter 105, rental of real property. But it has to be renoticed. Apparently, the notice was inefficient. So that'll be on next. Yes, sir.
Can I just ask you when the next public hearing will be on this?
We don't know yet. Do you have that scheduled?
Well, whatever the next town board meeting.
Oh, you want it?
That'll be-
16th?
May 16th? Okay.
Yeah.
That'll be after the planning commissions.
Yeah, because the planning commission's on May 3rd. So we just want to make sure we get their comments before we have another hearing.
Thanks, Chuck. Okay, that said, we're not gonna close that hearing, we're gonna adjourn that hearing. I'm gonna go back to our regular meeting.
Jerry, motion to adjourn it?
Motion to adjourn that hearing?
Yes.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
I second that.
Okay.
One resolution?
One resolution.
Ready?
Two.
Two.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna act, before we open to the public, we're gonna act on the
Serena Dugan.
Serene Dugan application. Thank you, Alice.
I do.
Whereas Serena Dugan of 37 Tut Hill Drive has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.073617 north and longitude 2.2856.
Pause there for a second. You got different ordinance?
No.
Not for Dugan?
Oh, we did have different, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it is the correct one in there?
Oh, good.
Okay, good, okay. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, cool. West. And whereas the public hearing was duly held on the 25th day of April 2023 for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition, now therefore be it resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized to issue a permit for aforementioned installation at a location designated as latitude 41.073692 north and longitude 72.285299 degrees west, as per WMAC recommendation. So moved.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Whereas a public hearing was held on Tuesday, April 25th, 2023, to hear any and all persons either for or against the local law entitled the local law, adding a new chapter 106 entitled right-of-ways to prohibit certain obstructions into the public right-of-way, which provides as follows. The local law adding a new chapter right-of-ways to prohibit certain obstructions in the right-of-way. And the summary for this law is the purpose of this local law is to protect the health, safety, and welfare of those who traverse Shelter Island roads by prohibiting obstructions within the shoulders thereof. It also allows the town to remove such obstructions if property owners adjoining same fail to do so. And this will take effect, this local law shall take effect upon filing with the Secretary of State pursuant to municipal home rule. So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, at this time, we'll open it up to the public. Any questions, comments, concerns? Anybody in the audience? Anybody in the Zoom audience? Okay, last chance. Okay, if there's no comments, I'm going to make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second?
Favor? Aye.